I run a state that is a typical example of a state surrounded by war. On one side of my divide, Cross River is challenged with the Cameroonians and the Amazonian conflict. And we are perpetually at war with the Cameroons because they have a direct border, a land border with Cross River State. On the other side, we have Akwa Ibom sharing border with us, we have Abia State sharing border with us, and we have Ebonyi State sharing border with us. And of course, in the northern part, we have Benue State sharing border with us. And at all times, we have skirmishes and absolute crisis between these states and Cross River State. And above all, we have a maritime corridor, which is part of the conflict areas within the Gulf of Guinea, where piracy is rated to be the highest. Now, the proliferation of small weapons, light arms and small weapons into Nigeria find their ingress through the riverines, and that brings Cross River State into ASCANs. Above all, remember that Operation Delta Safe was set up specifically to address the issues of pipeline vandalization. And so, when federal government set up all of this, they focused on all the oil producing states and left Cross River alone. So Cross River State became the safe haven for all kidnappers, terrorists, and bandits alike. So sitting as governor with zero allocation most times, with a very, very intelligent, youthful force, understanding the amount of increase of weapons and criminals into Cross River State, and taking over the whole of our wetlands and all the Bakassi Islands and riverines, it became almost impossible to run a state. But still go to the police and check the statistics. Cross River State presents itself still as the safest town. That's under my administration. It requires beyond money. It requires intellect, connectivity, contact, exposure, and knowing what to do. So I have run a mini Nigeria, at a mini war, and I've run it to success. Two, don't forget that the greatest challenge of Nigeria is the question of, can Nigeria remain one? So I like your question. How do I unite this country? I can demonstrate it. When all Southern governors came together and decided that we were going to abolish open grazing and ask every governor of the Southern extraction to sign into law the anti-open grazing bill, to sign the bill into law. I was the only governor who refused to sign. And I refused to sign because I didn't think it is right, and I don't think it's right to legislate into illegitimacy a legitimate trade of the people. A trade of the Fulanis and the Hausas and other headsmen who move cattle from one place to other in search of pasture. That profession, that trade has been there before I was born. I cannot by fear, without the sensitivity of the alternative means of livelihood of the people, and just legislate like that because I have the arrogance of being a governor. I am so convinced also that I believe that the decision I took in that respect shows that I am sensitive to the yearnings of the other nationalities that make up the corporate entity called Nigeria. And the issue of unemployment, which forms part of the insecurity. You see what I've done in Cross River State. I know also that no matter how much you invest on infrastructure, don't pride yourself by how many roads and how many bridges, how many schools you have built. Pride yourself by how many lives you have saved, how many people you've put food on their table. So I started a welfare program, short of calling a social security scheme, paying 30,000 naira to as many people as I can within the confines of the kindred and family structure system. So you earn an amount of 30,000 naira even when you don't work. And that is a kind of extrapolation of the use of the Keynesian theory, where sometimes you give someone a contract to dig a hole and another to close the hole, just to create an economic cycle. Take note also that I met a situation where Cross River used to have 13 commissioners. I moved it to 39 commissioners, not because I needed 39 commissioners, but indeed that was one way of creating the densification and the flux of funds across the economy. Because in a time of crisis, government does not reduce, it increases expenditure. So I made a policy that Cross River money should not cross the river. So if we don't want our money to cross the river, we stop the big voluptuous projects and use intellectual money to fund the big projects and use your basic income, if you have, and the IGR to focus on salaries. And that's why for 7 years we have paid salary without fail. While the projects that I do that looks too big are driven by intellectual money, which is a special credit to myself, knowing how to do business without having the currency of money to drive the process. So for Nigeria, to know that herdsmen and farmers clash is the basis for most of our security crisis that we've got. We have also decided to introduce a technology by innovation to introduce different types of grasses that can help improve the lot of farmers. So herders will not bother themselves to travel all the way to the north. They can have access to grasses and all of that to be able to help us drive the process. And I think we've done well in that regard. First of all, I'm not a desperate person by my nature. The fact that I have much to offer does not mean that I'm the only person on earth to do so. And I think I'm satisfied with the simplicity of the fact that I've made myself available. But however the party is going to look at it, I think that the process of consensus building should also have a fundamental role beyond zoning to also deal with the issue of capacity. And just like you were asking me about the issue of unity of this nation, if you check, the head of my audit unit is from Kano State. The head of my legal unit, my major legal advisor, Vice Maigoro, is from northern Nigeria. Rabilu, he's from Katsina State. The guy who is heading the whole of my farmer-header relationship, the person who is heading my campaign team from Obuja, Adamu, is from the north. I have too many. I have cabinet members who are not from Cross River State. I have people who are of the Yoruba extraction, the Igbo extraction in my government. So I have come to a point where I realize that the best thing to be able to guarantee peace in this nation is to have a very civilized soul, somebody who is educated in heart, in spirit, in soul, and in conduct and action. So if I'm being asked, by virtue of all of this that I've said that I've done, along with this trying to make Cross River like a small Nigeria, and I'm asked to step down on the basis of consensus building for our party, I believe that whoever the cap fits, and if I'm convinced within that logic that he represents a better interest for Nigeria, I believe that that is not the end of how I can add value to this system, because ultimately it means that the person will also recognize the value I bring and will want to share from my wealth of experience and knowledge. But the God I serve and the commitment that I have, the catechism of faith that I've got, I know that ultimately this consensus will narrow down to me. Okay, essentially speaking, I seem to be bestriding the divide. I have the intellectualism, the capacity of an elderly man, but I have the youthful enthusiasm of a youth. I am a bridge connecting the young and the old. I'm an old head on young shoulders. I'm a very smart divide between the two. At 54, I think the youth in a new definition ends at 55. So I fit properly into the age of 54 as a young person. No, you can't use the word soul. It has to be a mixture. Okay. It has to be a mixture. But again, I will not run into hasty generalization trying to please and speak what pleases the people. My focus will deal with the issue of security. Yes. When I fix security and I fix power, when I fix security and fix power, youth unemployment will disappear. I give you an example. As a governor of Cross River State, I knew that all the raw materials that most factories and industries require in Nigeria, they come in through one major port, which is the port of Lagos. The port suffers a lot of congestion. 3 months you can't get your goods out. I knew that we needed to create an eastern flank. And that's why I proposed the Bakassi Deep Sea Port with an evacuation corridor, the superhighway, with 6 lanes linking to northern Nigeria, trying to draw Atlantic Ocean closer to northern Nigeria, and create a new horizon of hope by ensuring that crops like all the agricultural produce of northern Nigeria, cotton, gum, arabic, their solid minerals, can find easy evacuation into the seaport for export. What has been the problem that the north is hemmed in with so much natural resources? The northern part of Africa exports through Cameroon, and they go through over 1,800 kilometers, and they go through huge torture by the Cameroonian gin dams. So there is a dying need for an alternative gateway, maritime gateway into Nigeria. And that's what I tried to do, to put up a seaport with an evacuation corridor to be able to open up the eastern flank and increase and improve the economy so that we can have export agriculture, young people can get jobs. You don't just create jobs, because those jobs have to be self-sustaining. To be able to make the job sustainable so that employers of labor can guarantee their salaries, you need to first reconstruct the economic layout and foundations. And that foundation can only come when you have done security and then fix it properly with electricity. And to deal with power, the energy mix structure of Nigeria is dysfunctional because you cannot use gas to fire turbines to be able to generate electricity. That is a bit medieval. Gas today has too many alternatives. A small country like Qatar exports gas as their core business. They are doing so well. They are #1 exporters of ammonia. Nigeria can put her own ammonia plants. It can have their own nitrogenous fertilizer plants. It can do so much with the gas and rather focus on hydropower, renewable energy, using solar, using underwater current systems, using copper plated blades to draw and run their hydro turbines to generate electricity from saliferous aquifers, saliferous water sources such as the Atlantic Ocean. If you have a major turbine in Calabar to drive power up to Maiduguri, if you have a major turbine in Port Harcourt to drive power to Kano, if you have a major turbine in Lagos to drive power to Sokoto, you would have had 3 master transmission lines managed by a private company. You would have had the power generation managed by a private company. Government hands-off power. Government hands-off transmission, because the vertical mechanical structure that has a guarantee from World Bank, a partial risk guarantee, that guarantees that whether you generate electricity, whether you take or not, you must pay, has given a lacuna where people luxuriate on that and make money without power generation. And the transmission line, because it is a captive transmission line dedicated under the monopoly of federal government, its inadequacies brings these national power challenges. So when you have a license structure where different regions have different power suppliers, Siemens, for example, supplying Niger Delta, GE, for example, supplying Southeast, and GE goes to Southeast and look, oh, Southeast, it's better I go solar, and decide to have massive solar farms and generate electricity. Those who go towards the northwest and see that the wind is good and decide to use wind turbines. This is how this country, the energy mix structure of this country, must focus only on renewables with less than 15%. Germany is hoping to go 100% renewable with over 4,000 micro turbines from streams generating half a megawatt, far less 25% of a megawatt to generate electricity. This is how this country will grow. If we continue to rely on the radial instead of the radial no-loop system of power transmission that we have today, what we are going to have is power cataclysm. It will never be fixed. And don't forget, there are saboteurs in our economy, generator suppliers, people who are ready to destroy transmission lines, diesel suppliers, tank farm owners. All of them are in an unholy conspiracy to create darkness in order to sustain their business. All of this, the president must have a street wisdom, must have a professional background, must have capacity, must have the education, must have the know-how, must also have the ability to listen to people and distill that which is of value and take advice and put them together in an intellectual maturation process to be able to bring value and Kinoski to this country.
Excellency, I would have loved to ask you what happened to the deep sea project.
Yes, I don't mind.
You're still on it?
Yes,
So
I can take it.
You're hoping to complete the project before?
The Bakassi Deep Sea Port,
Yes.
I can tell you the history. If you take the Lekki Deep Sea Port, it started 27 years ago.
Okay.
27 years ago. It's just reached some reasonable construction phase now. Yeah, because I give you an example. I applied for a license to build the deep sea port. The license process requires an EIA. EIA requires 2 seasons, which means you have about 2 years to run to waste just to do the impact analysis and produce the EMP, the environmental management plan, which will now give you approval for it to have an international acceptability. You have an approval process that requires presidential approval, ministerial approval, that cascades down the line, community engagement. These things take years. You also have the pre-construction and the design phase that must meet the international admiralty approvals. These processes take time. Unfortunately, in our own climate, infrastructure is a big challenge, but the process of approval, the bottleneck is huge. At this point, it is the fastest project so far. We have reached a point where we're almost getting to an economic close. We have the outline business case completed and approved by the Ministry of Transportation, and right now we're at the full business case. On the completion of the full business case, we will go out to shop for an investor, and that's where we are. Once we have an investor, The investor comes in and he starts running. But don't forget, an investor coming into Nigeria at this time, where every news you read, news item in Nigeria, have you tried to Google or try to look at news summary of the day? I hardly like to watch Nigerian news because it's like a nation at war. And you're asking a foreign investor to come and put his money. When he come, I brought in a team. They were in a hotel in Calabar, just tuning our stations, Nigerian stations. They packed their bag and said they can't. It's like we're at war zone. Every country's got its own trouble. But our own press, they just love the bad news. They bring it to the forefront. And then you turn back and say, oh, Mr. Governor, you promised a seaport. Do you know how many investors are brought to Cross River State? By the time they come here and do their study, the macroeconomic climate, which is outside my modulation, is such that I don't have control. Repatriation of proceeds. If you have Naira, of course, recently, Emirates alone, we sold tickets in millions and billions of Naira, but we can't repatriate the money because the repatriation regime is not within the control of a state governor. Yet I've got a seaport, and I'm asking DP World, which is the Dubai Port Authority, to come and join me to invest in the Bakassi Deep Seaport construction. They say, hey, how can I come? I have Emirates Airline. I have billions of Naira in the Nigerian bank. The banks are collaborating to ensure that I can't take my money out. So why do you want me to come and invest for that? So because I understand all of this, and don't forget, I come from the private sector. I'm not a politician. I started by saying so. I come from a private sector, oil and gas consultant, responsible for crude oil export analysis, responsible for process engineering, pipeline construction, piling processes, foundation work. This is my background, upstream, oil and gas upstream. So, like the back of my palm, I understand the oil economics of Nigeria. I understand our production quota, I understand the reasons, I understand cost of production. When I become president of Nigeria, we're going to revisit the cost of production. It is the most unacceptable production cost in the world. Where we stand today, staggering over $37 per barrel as production cost for oil that gushes from the ground naturally. We don't even need secondary recovery process to be able to create, to allow for the capillary rise of our oil. So, you see, if you don't have, it's very easy to say I want to run for president and speak to the pleasure and give social talks that generate excitement among the watching public. But when it comes to the real thing, the real deal, it is depth of knowledge. It is capacity, experiential capacity on hands-on. That's what you really have to count on.
So that's what is
that's what I'm bringing to the table. So I'm not talking as a professor who is in the university. I've done the university part at the age of 32. I'm done with the university part. I've gone to the legal, I'm a lawyer, I hold a master's degree in law, but basically speaking, I've been a senator, I've been a lawmaker. So I'm not coming from, oh, I've been a governor, oh, I've been a senator. I've been both.
And you've been a businessman?
And I've been a businessman. So I come complete. If you like, just ask me any question in any field on earth, be it medicine, be it literature, be it science. I will take you on it and you will know that I'm really equipped and prepared. And if you want to know it, please go and check records wherever I've served, either from University of Ibadan, where I finished my PhD. So if you go to University of Ibadan today, the sewage, the wastewater treatment system for the postgraduate hall is my invention. The major wastewater treatment system for the University of Ibadan, I've not been there for some years, it's my invention. If you go to most of the oil companies in their terminal, the wastewater treatment system is Ayade's technology, my invention. If you go to the Senate and you see my bills, you will see how they were human-specific, how I made housing a must, that housing is a human right and is a law, asking that the Senate and the National Assembly should become part-time. We talk too much and do very little. We should all move out and go and add to the economy of this country. People forget my pedigree. If any person on earth who says he can run a state like Cross River with almost zero allocation for 7 years and show the projects I have, today I pride myself with the best hospital in Africa today. It's been built in Cross River and completed in Cross River with the most sophisticated equipment for cancer treatment, brachytherapy, linear accelerator. The list is endless. They are there on the ground. And I have the Germans who are working day and night in those hospitals to commence it. And to know that I have floated an airline. We are the last mile of obtaining our AOC to allow us the luxury of flying Cali Air as a full licensed airline instead of running it through a partnership that is giving it its difficulty. And I'm building an airport. And don't forget, agriculture does not create jobs. Any agriculture that creates jobs is slave agriculture. Technology has taken over job creation in agriculture. The real thing that creates jobs is services. Services is tourism, entertainment. And to achieve that, I need to get the Obudu cattle ranch working. That's why I'm building an international airport in Obudu, to be able to bring traffic and increase footfalls into Obudu, so that Africans can now call Obudu cattle ranch their own, perhaps our Camp David. People come in there and luxuriate in the pleasure and the panache and the glitterazzi of what the ranch has to offer, without having to look for dollar, to be able to devalue our currency, to be able to travel for vacation. All of this concept within the confines of limited income, completely, absolutely nothing, with 4.2 million people, 18,000 people on my table, and 6,000 direct appointees, 39 commissioners, and so many extra ministerial agencies running. So it's different from a man who is talking from being a subordinate. When the buck stops on your table as governor of a state, when buck stops on your table as a chief executive, then talk to me. Then when you're talking to me, let's look at what was your income when you are governor, and what is my income, and what is the value of the naira at the time I'm governor, versus what is the value of the naira when you were governor. Let's compare. And then I go factory to factory, road to road, dualization to hospital to hospital. Let's see who in this country has achieved what Governor Ayade has achieved. Talk is cheap.
Thanks for checking out SYMFONI on YouTube. Please be sure to subscribe and like our videos for updates.